Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining our GrowTal podcast. We are spending today talking with Michelle Dixon Green, who was one of the first people to join GrowTal and has been working with us for several months now, and excited to have you, Michelle, on board.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So today we're just going to talk a little bit about Michelle's background. We're going to have a conversation about what it's like working for GrowTal, and we'll just kind of have a good convo and go from here.
Sounds good.
All right. So Michelle, thank you for joining us today. I want to just kind of kick it off with hearing a little bit about your background and how you found your way to GrowTal and how it's been so far.
Yeah. Well, I met you through a mutual friend who I think you met, networking as well, looking for PR services. And my background is pretty varied at this point in my career. I have done a little bit of, my background is marketing, but, within marketing, there's sales and there's PR and there's copywriting and just about anything digital sales and marketing now, social. So, I've been working in the field for like 15 years. So I've had a little bit of experience in different sectors now that are very disparate, from banking to mixed martial arts manufacturing. And one of the companies I worked for was a company that made the UFC fight glove. And that was a fun and interesting experience and different road that I never expected to be on. But my initial, professional experience was with Li & Fung in New York. And that was, fast fashion and home goods. And my last, corporate position was with a bank. So in the credit card division. So I have kind of a varied experience, and every single one has always demanded a multifaceted kind of approach to marketing, because, with marketing, people expect you to be able to do all of those things and then some. And, you're often the person that is wearing all the hats. Which is great because that fits my personality. So it's been a fun ride in my career, and then to meet you and to work in GrowTal has been pretty seamless. And I've really appreciated that, because it appealed to me because I didn't want to go into a huge database of consultants and then get lost or have to completely undercut an hourly rate that didn't serve me, didn't help grow my career. And, it's all, time is so precious. So this has been a really good experience for me.
Yeah. Well, no, it's funny that you say that, working in a number of different backgrounds and then having to wear multiple hats. And one of the things I love about marketing is, I always say marketing is marketing no matter what product you're working on, though, right? I mean, there's this similar flavor of the things you have to do, no matter if you're working with a nonprofit or you're working with the UFC, right?
Right.
No matter what, you got to get the messaging down. You have to get the messaging out there and solicit a response and get people to purchase the product or view the content or whatever, donate, whatever it's going to be, right? Did you have any experience with any other freelancing platforms before joining GrowTal?
I never got into them because I just frankly I just was not interested in the time that I felt that it was going to take, and the investment there of getting into those systems. I thought about it. I was really close to doing it just to try, but luckily, it's all about networking, and that had gotten me far enough that I had enough clients and felt like I was in a good place that I didn't need to go into those systems. And then, this opportunity came up with GrowTal. So it was kind of a perfect everything just kind of fell into place. So I never had to, undercut my, hourly rate or work really hard just to get reviews so that my, profile would be seen on some of those working sites, consulting sites. So
yeah. Yeah, and we hear that about places like Upwork, for example, where the person peruses through all the different profiles, and it's a little bit of a race to the bottom, right? Like,
yeah,
how low can I make my rates to make myself more attractive, and then how do I bolster my reviews? And even then, for the person buying, right? And I've hired off of Upwork multiple times. You can go after the most highly reviewed person, not necessarily scrape the bottom of the barrel, but try to get a good price. And then the quality is just terrible still.
right.
And so it's really hard, I think, on the buyer's end too, to know what you're going to get out from the other side, because everybody's forced to try to game this system to try to get a high price, but also attract the buyers to reach out to them. And so I love that we find great professionals like yourself, and then are able to present them to different companies based on your experience and how we think we're going to have you bring value right out of the gates.
Yeah.
What is your favorite part of been working with GrowTal so far?
It's been pretty seamless. The intake and just talking to the client was very easy. To introduce myself, getting onboarded was really easy, and then making my own hours is so valuable to me. So I think that was probably the biggest selling point, is the hours. And then just how easy it's been. It's nice to work with nice people. So yeah,
certainly. And what can you tell me about how it's felt like in terms of differences? Like, one of the things that we like to think we bring to the table is helping with invoices and following up on payments and all those kinds of things. Have you felt a difference working through GrowTal versus doing it independently?
Yeah, I mean, that has been, again, very seamless part of the whole setup. With Gusto, it was very easy. And then just going in and putting in your time card is, you just do it as you can. And the payment I have had no issues. It's just been so easy. So I really appreciate that because it's just, nothing has been anything I've had to put any effort into, which is great because nobody has time to have to struggle or argue with a client. I mean, that can happen, having the back and forth with a client about hours or payments. And with this system, it's just, it is what it is, and you're putting in your hours, and it just all it flows pretty easily. And I know this client had some that I'm working with now had some particulars for payments because they're a nonprofit, and not, even though they did, and it wasn't like a standard process on their end, everything has been seamless on mine. So that's been really great for GrowTal to be able to, kind of handle for me, and I don't have to worry about any of that. So yeah.
Great. Well, I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah.
What about the gig that you're working on now? Can you give us a little bit more understanding of the types of work that you're doing for your client?
Yeah. This one is pretty specific. Like, I think sometimes you can have a client that has varying needs through the contract, and this one has been very specific to content strategy on social. And his biggest ask was that I be able to not only do that, but then put an analytics together afterwards, because this organization is a land trust, and marketing on a broader scale and going down, into social and proving ROI is kind of where they are right now in their growth journey for sales and marketing. So the CMO is new, who I'm working with, and he was previously contract as well. And so it's just like in that proving stage. So it's been really fun to work with him, and he's a great person. And then the organization itself is something that I believe in. So that makes it easier for me to do my job when I respect the person and the organization that I work for. So content marketing has been something I've done, but being able to concentrate on it and doing social and then the analytics has been fun for me. So I've really enjoyed that. I get to concentrate in one area instead of with previous jobs, you're just kind of thrown everywhere. So that's what I'm doing.
That's great. Can you give any specifics of the type of analytics and how you're looking at how to measure, I guess, the impact of the social strategy on, I guess, in this case, since they're a nonprofit, is it on donations?
Yeah, it's donations. They recently, the wildfires impacted them greatly for Big Basin Redwood State Park. This is Semper Virens Fund. So, you just never know what's going to happen. And that's part of with social. They had a hashtag Big Basin Memories, and it ended up getting covered by the New York Times. And I mean, their growth was just like almost tripled in some case on social. And that led to, and just the coverage in the Times as well. So there was just like a lot of growth, and being able to use social to kind of help track where it's coming from, because, you can go into Instagram and you're able to see where exactly it's coming from, and the Facebook analytics are very helpful. And that also helps paint a picture and prove to the leadership that more investment in a smarter technology to track these instead of, because since it's early growth stages here, it's me going into the posts and looking at like individual posts that are performing well, and then, boosting those, which is fine, but eventually that's not going to be efficient or effective, because, they're wanting to put some money behind it, which is great. So it's just pulling those reports kind of manually and using free platforms right now. And eventually, that's what we've been talking about, is kind of proving the validity of it, so that just a little bit more dollars can be placed behind it, so that reporting can be a little bit easier and quicker. But yeah, I mean, even with other hashtags that we've been implementing, we've seen growth, and it's really been really fun to see and be able to prove that through the analytics and pulling those, specifically Instagram and Facebook.
Yeah, that's great. And what a good cause too, to be working with the Big Basin after all the fires.
Yeah.
It's tough. At least now all the underbrush is burned, right? So hopefully it won't come back.
Well, I mean, the good part is that the redwoods are so resilient, and a lot of them have already burned before, and, they're still growing, and the ability for a redwood to I've learned so much, but they can really bounce back. But the bad part is, losing, I think it was 90% of the structures in that park. So there's history gone, and there's, infrastructure that needs to be rebuilt. But at the same time, there's now a bigger light shined on what this organization does. And, they're supporting national parks, which benefits everybody, and is, a very low cost, especially right now, getting outdoors has really been a lifesaver for me and a lot of other people. So having spaces that are protected, has been really a cool organization to be able to work for, and have that light shown on it, and being able to be part of the process of getting more people exposed to understanding what's happening. And because, you go to a national park and it's like, oh yeah, this is just a national park and it's for everybody. But how did that get put into place? And more places are getting set aside and more land. So they just buy land for conservation purposes, to save. So
great.
For all of us. So that's great.
Yeah, that's what we need. Protect that environment.
Yeah.
Let's see. Another question, just a quick one on freelancing. Do you have any advice for new freelancers? You've been doing freelancing for a while, right?
Yeah.
Do you have any advice for freelancers and how people might approach it, given if they're trying to switch to full-time freelancing from the corporate world?
Yeah, I think wrapping your head around it is part of the difficulty going from, because this is my first foray in this past year into consulting and freelancing. And I think building a community of other people that have done the same thing is important, so that you can kind of get advice where your rate should be, kind of cadence of work and what's normal. And then being able to set hours, because that is one thing that I personally had to kind of better understand, especially being at home in this quarantine and COVID, just understanding when to turn it off. So being able to keep track of your hours and not overextend yourself, I think is something just to be very aware of, because you'll get burned out.
Yeah. It's a marathon, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Or there's a good quote that I heard from someone recently on entrepreneurship, which is it's a marathon with a series of sprints in between.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
The same sort of thing as freelancing, right? Like sometimes, you have to put in the extra hours, but then make sure you stop and take a rest, right, before you get into the next piece. So,
which has been great too, because then, I don't mind at certain times to put in hours intensely, and then you're done. And that's the great thing about consulting and that I have really appreciated right now, because with family being together all the time, you get the break. But you also have the, with working, like, okay, I'm setting my hours, but then you can kind of set aside whatever time you need, a block of time that if you want to spend that with your family, versus, being in the office where you're, the cultural standard for Americans is just work, work, work. And you might be looked upon badly if you're leaving the office early to go spend time with family, or your, doctor's appointment or whatever. I know that has been the case in some of my other corporate jobs, and you don't want to look bad. So, being able to set your own hours is so valuable.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one thing I love about being an entrepreneur too, I guess, is that same thing, type of thing. You set your own hours, and whenever you're a freelancer, it's like you're your own little entity, right?
Yeah.
And it's a good gig. Well, I think that's about time for us. I really appreciate you jumping on today, and thank you for being a part of the community and for all the work you're doing.
Yeah, thank you guys. It's been great.